not long ago, I was at the French Club at the restaurant on East Main Street, the Cupelli, and stood there grumbling in my spirit about the lack of French being uttered across the table. Because of the 7 people there, 3 were not speaking French, and I was not wanting to talk in English, and so I was grumbling. But I thought, well, I've come here, and a good thing has come from it, and that is that I wandered about the building there and entered a lovely working studio, vision stained glass, run by Carolyn Insler. And before I walked in, I said, well, I know that you, my listener, are going to want to meet Carolyn, who is involved in stained glass, not plastic. She insists that it's all there's no plastic in her work. It's all glass, and it's colored glass. And she arranges all these wonderful pieces for delight and pleasure. And so Carolyn Insler is in Chattanooga. She's been here for some time. We'll hear a little bit more about how she got here. But she's had her studio on East Main Street for 2 years, and there lately she's been working on a major project, a kind of a one that requires a kind of a factory. Though she is not a factory, she makes every item by hand. 84 of them, 84 awards that will be given soon at an event. October 29 is the Chattanooga race for paddle boarders and kayak. And she's working through a project that has these lovely designs, which we'll hear more about. So, Carolyn, you're busy working on the Chattanooga race commission. This is a commission. This is not a spec project in which you hope to find a customer at the end of. This is someone who approached you and said, "We would like you to make these for us." What's the job all about?
Well, they came to me sort of in a situation where they needed someone to pick up the ball that somebody else had dropped. So I didn't have a lot of time, but I agreed to do it for them. I came up with they were very flexible with the design. They asked me to come up with something that signified the race, that picked up the bend in the river, not necessarily with a paddle, but these are kayak and paddleboard, and they wanted something unique. So I came up with the design. They loved it, and now I'm in mass production. I'm about a third of the way through.
So this is mass production. So it's not really mass production because each one is made by hand, right? So
it takes about an hour per piece, all told.
And so it's well, what you're viewing on Facebook is it's a square design, more or less, of about 8 inches left and right, about 5 inches up and down. Green with the hint of a mountain range line, and the curve of bright blue, which is the river on which this event will be had.
And I used a highly textured glass that looks like waves in the water, and the green for the lush scenery.
Well, now, what is your background as an artist, Carolyn Insler? Did you start young in glass?
Yes, quite a few years ago, over 40. Didn't have any formal training. I learned from a studio in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I have relatives that are artists, so I've always been drawn to art. I've never approached it as a hobby necessarily. It was I've never used pattern books like a lot of hobbyists do. I've always
used what now?
Pattern books. So the designs are all my own that I've created.
Now, this is just one thing, and this is a nice big job for you, and you have many others that you create. What are some of the objects you create and design, Carolyn Insler?
Well, I do a lot of custom work. I've shipped to just about every state in the United States and a few countries. People see my website. They look at samples of what I've done in the past, and I come up with something unique for them. This is a speculation piece. It's a box. It's trees that are puddled in with lead.
I'm holding here on Facebook and on YouTube a large box. It weighs about 4 or 5 pounds, and it's a wooden frame. And there are, well, it looks like it's a very orange. There are trees in the foreground. Is that correct?
Yes, I call it the Red Forest, and I came up with that name after watching a sci-fi movie called The 12 Monkeys, if anybody's familiar with that. Time travel kind of thing, and that's the Red Forest. Also, the box was made by Jim Roche, who's a local artist in town. When I was there for 10 years as a member, I met him and we collaborated.
In-town, meaning the in-town gallery.
In-town gallery.
Well, just say something briefly about that. You're not a member now of that co-op.
I was for 10 years, and then I decided to do a retail environment, which for the past 2 years, I've spent 40 plus hours a week there. So I have no time.
In your second floor studio.
Yes, it's in the Clear Story building on Main Street. It's a wonderful space, huge ceilings, 2 walls of solid windows. I have a showroom with things that I've made. I also sell products to the hobbyists in the area, which is a need that there's maybe another place in Knoxville and Atlanta, but nothing local.
Meaning hobbyists in the glass field. Are there
Yes.
many of them?
Not a lot, but it's growing as people are taking classes. And I also do a huge amount of restoration work. Last year, I worked on church windows that were 150 years old and totally restored them, took them apart, removed the lead, and that took me about 4 or 5 months.
Well, you mentioned lead. Now, is that what makes the image? Is that the black line between the frames that holds all the parts together?
Right.
Why lead? Why does aluminum not work? Why that particular metal?
It's flexible. You can bend it to any shape. And
without it being hot?
Yeah, it's once you bend it, then there's a cement, kind of a mud that you put underneath the channel to give it rigidity.
I don't quite get that. Explain that.
Well, the lead channel is the glass fits into the channel, and then you solder the joints. But after you do that, it rattles, so you have to secure it with.
So you have what these designs are. If I can just help the listener see what it is, you have a design which is filled, which is a main design. Say you have a blank background. So your trees in this light box are the lead,
right? And
you have so that's lead, and then between the pieces, you have the colored glass. Right. Okay, and the lead is good because it's supple, and so each of these lines here is a kind of a thin tube with a crease down one side of it where the glass fits in.
Actually,
that you've cut.
There's 2 different methods. When I was referring to the restoration of the church windows, the lead channel is used for huge projects. Something small like this is done with a copper foil method, and the copper foil is wrapped around the edge of the lead or edge of the glass, and then the lead is put on top. So it's 2 different methods.
So it's a way. It's somewhat like if my listeners trying to connect with what you're doing. It's a puzzle, and the parts between the pieces is the lead, and your design is in the lead, and then the glass is fitted to cut. It's cut and fitted.
Correct.
Well, how do you cut the glass? What machine do you use for that?
It's just a handheld glass cutter. You score it lightly and then break it. So.
Well, let me ask you about inspiration. Carolyn Insler, you are a stained glass artist here in Chattanooga. Where do you get your ideas from? Do you have a muse, or how do you identify the origin of a spec piece, one that is not by command, one that's not like the kayak metal, but one that comes from, let's say you're in a reservoir as artists? Talk about that a little bit.
When I'm just playing, yes.
Yeah, you're just playing and you're thinking, oh, I want to go that way, or I want to go this way.
The direction I've gone quite a bit in the past is the 1940s look, the Art Deco. I've done a lot of women with the white gloves and the flowing gowns, and I'm drawn to that era.
When I looked at an art history book this morning, I just scanned the pages that were very clear black and white photographs, and I didn't get the sense that the glass work is held high in the art, I guess in the art academia. Is that just a misperception based on my quick review of one book?
I think that's somewhat correct. A lot of glass artists now are going into hot glass, fusible glass, blown glass, has a little bit higher regard than stained glass, and I think it's because so many hobbyists have taken over. It's like paint by number kind of approach, and I have never gone that way, and I don't intend to.
So the idea of a paint by number approach, that you're sort of denigrating that as a method. Why is that? Why are you somehow above that that method,
I just choose
Carolyn?
to make something that's one of a kind. If I'm going to put the time and energy and thought into it, I want it to be unique. And yes, you can change the glass. If I have a design that I really have liked, I'll do it again, but I'll change some lines. I'll change the colors. Now this is an example of a panel.
Now I'm holding up for our YouTube viewers another of Carolyn Insler's works. She is from Vision Stained Glass down on East Main Street. What are we looking at here, Carolyn?
This is a panel that can be hung in a window, and it's an example of what can be done to put in a space if you want to obscure a view or just add some color. It's a small panel. I can do huge windows to fit. But this is something that some people don't realize they want it until they see it. So I have a lot of examples of these windows in my shop, and this is bamboo that is growing in my backyard. So when I had my studio in the carriage house, I live in Fort Wood, which is a wonderful neighborhood. I was constantly gazing at the bamboo, so I had to put it in glass.
Well, is lead not something kind of dangerous as a material? We talk about lead poisoning in paint and so on. Do you take precautions, health precautions, as artists, Carolyn?
Yeah, I have a smoke evacuator from the fumes when I'm soldering. I take care not to eat right after I've handled the lead. You know, I have a special soap that takes the lead off. So I do take precautions, but I haven't had a problem in all these years. So.
When I've interviewed other artists, Carolyn, I like to ask about the inspiration. So if I could get back to that, how is it in the glass field? Do you have a work of art that is satisfying? When, for example, this light box here with the trees, the orange forest from the 12 Monkeys movie, of course, the work itself is separated from the origin, I guess, because it becomes its own reality. How is it, or what happens when you say, this is what I want, and I'm satisfied, and I'm glad, and the whole productive process is I would like to think, is a kind of gladdening process of your heart. Here you are, yeah. It's coming into being, it's looking like you want. Of course, in ways, it's all routine for you. It's just work, but still, you are an artist. Does glass give you the catharsis, the satisfaction, if you will, that other artists have when they're painting? I mean, how is glass somehow different as a medium on that point of making happen something that's sort of in your inner eye, and being glad as it's finished that you have in fact presented what you see, and now you want me, David Tulis, your host, or the listener, to see what you have, and here it is. I mean, how do you I'm just asking about the quality, I guess, or the extent of that gratification.
I think I come very close to be 100% satisfied, but never quite there. There's always something that if I were to do it again, I would change slightly. But it's like working for that is what keeps me going.
Well, all right. In this piece, the spec piece, what's the one thing that you think you would do differently, if you can pin it down for me? I've got her on the spot.
Yes. I might change the line of that branch.
One branch in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a few very subtle things, but yeah, I don't think I've ever done it exactly the same when I do it again.
You're married, Carolyn. Your husband is Michael. He's a retired chemist from the pharmaceutical business. You live in Fort Wood, near the university, and you have one son. What does your house look like? What does your living room look like?
It is 100 years plus old house, and it's right next to other brick houses. So I've done a lot of adapting my work to the house with windows in that style. And so I've used glass that brings the light in with lots of jewels, and it blocks the view, but it lets the light come in.
How strong is Chattanooga as an arts city? Can you discuss the arts world in Chattanooga, the arts culture, the art claques, the art cliques, the art experts, the market here? I
was a little disappointed this year because Ava has always put on the gallery hop every year, and as a small business and as an artist, I've looked forward to that. This year they canceled it for no reason, so that was disappointing. but we do have the American Express puts on the Small Business Saturday, which is coming up, and that is very helpful. People come out to and patronize small businesses in the area. That's the day after Black Friday, I guess. And
the day after Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, yes. Then we have 24 Times Maine coming up, which is a wonderful event, and that is December 4th, I believe. The whole building gets
involved. Are you part of that? Or?
Yes. The building, the Clear Story building, will be involved in all the businesses within it.
Well, so this is the answer to my question. Then you're suggesting that though Ava is not having its gallery hop, these other two things are kind of compensating for that. Well, but let me ask, kind of beyond events, what about the people here, the other artists you've met, other patrons of the arts, customers, the wealthy who like to adorn their living rooms and foyers with beautiful works? Is it strong in Chattanooga compared to, let's say, Charlotte? Or Nashville? What other? How can you compare with other cities?
It's before I came here, I had a retail shop and studio in Las Vegas, and definitely there's more of an interest in art here than in Vegas, I found. But when I lived in Michigan, where I grew up, the Chicago area is the strongest support of the arts I've ever.
And how, when you were living there, how did you sense that support? How did it come at you?
Sales. Bottom line. People didn't think twice about spending money on things that they liked.
So the art patrons in Chattanooga are not as many, maybe not as wealthy, not as aggressive in making purchases. They count their pennies more.
Well, as a member of the in-town gallery, when I was there, a lot of the sales were going to people that were traveling and tourists. It seemed like more than the local. And I think that's just the case that a lot of times when you do travel, you tend to buy things like that. I don't know.
Well,
I do.
The idea of the in-town gallery, I really like, because it's a co-op, and,
yes.
and every artist member owns kind of a share, and that brings benefits of being in one place. And also the benefits of having a host or a hostess. There are an artist who is committing for a certain afternoon of the month to be there, answering questions, showing visitors around, and kind of minding the store.
Yeah, I loved it.
And you met a lot of people that way, right?
Yes, and a lot of collaboration with other artists. It was great.
Well, this is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving us a couple minutes of your time. We're talking with Carolyn Insler. She runs Vision Stained Glass, which has been on East Main for 2 years. And she is open for commissions, and she also has Spec Works. It's a functioning gallery. Well, it is a functioning gallery, and so you have people who come in, who wander in, as I did, Carolyn. Mm-hmm. Do sometimes people, maybe my listener, wander in at the wrong time? You're just in the middle of soldering something, or you just can't break away for the next 15 minutes. Does that happen very often? And how do you get people into your store?
Well, I can usually stop what I'm doing, and I'm happy to explain what I'm doing and show and tell the process. Getting people into the store. Basically, I've really relied on Facebook and Instagram. Done some advertising with the local fair group. And I have the sandwich sign to help.
Well, listen, Carolyn, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
How can my listener contact you and find out more about you?
You can call me at 423-468. No, that's 423-255-3341. My website is huge. Lots of examples of my work at visionsgallery.com. I'm also
visionsgallery.com.
Yes. Visions with an S.
Well, this is David Tulis, and we're talking with a local businesswoman who's making her way in the art market, keeping her inspiration, and creating works, spec works that are from her own heart and mind, but also serving, as we are hearing, the Chattajack race organizers who have commissioned her to produce 84 medals, and she's halfway, or she's a third of the way through that mass production project. There's no factory though. It's they're all made by hand. Everyone taking about an hour. The event is October 29 on the front of the river. This is David Tulis, and our program argues for loving our neighbors and buying local. And I like to suggest that there are three main points to what we call the whimsical idea of local economy in the free market. And that is that near is better than far, small is better than big, simple than complex. And down the footnotes where even there the good people will struggle against me, I declare in ink and in lead of the kind that Carolyn Insler uses, personal is better than corporate, and physical is better than abstract. Make sure you like us on Facebook, like my program. It's David Tulis live on Facebook and on YouTube, and of course on the mighty airways. We're brought to you by Nooganomics.com. Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. Not popular, but it is only for the man who matters. David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3.